Hi there, Nick. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. So to start out with, I just want to thank you for coming in and applying for our position of recruiting manager. I'm going to be asking you various questions that are going to relate directly to your position, the duties, responsibilities that you would have if you were to gain the position. This interview should take about 12 to 14 minutes, during which I'm going to be taking some notes of your responses just so that I can remember them in the future and compile them a little bit better. If at any time you have questions or need clarification on something that I've said, please feel free to interject because I'm going to ask you the same thing if I don't understand something.
Sure.
Okay. So to start off, will you please describe a time when you had to use effective communication skills to communicate between multiple parties or departments?
Difficult time would be in a previous HR role, I had to communicate with multiple applicants, who they were, lining up various schedules to make interview times, and then, just setting up times for interviews for all those applicants. So conveying that with my team.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. My second question on that is going to be, can you describe a time in which you had a difficult topic that you were trying to discuss with your boss in which you needed to use effective communication to convey your point?
That would be thinking back, there was a coworker that had a performance issue. I wanted to talk to the employee, my coworker himself, but I didn't want to slander him, so I decided to go to the professional because we needed to address those issues. Does that answer your question?
That does. Yeah, thank you. All right. Have you ever experienced a time in your professional career where you had to condense content into a concise report for a supervisor or coworker?
Yes, I have.
Perfect. As a follow-up to that question, can you describe what you did and how the receiving party felt about that report?
What I did was I went to the HR conference for the team, and I summarized the events of that, what happened, made it into a document, and just sent it out to my coworkers. That way they were all informed about what was going on.
Alrighty, and then just the second question, I know I kind of combined them, so it didn't really get an answer. It was confusing on my part, sorry about that. But how did your coworkers receive that? Do you feel like they were able to read the information easily?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
And they gave me feedback about any questions or concerns they had about it.
Perfect, thanks for that. I know that was kind of confusing with the two-parter there. Alrighty. Can you give a time when you had to use creative questioning techniques to solicit a quality response from another individual?
Going back to my HR role, I had to sift through many resumes for interviews, of course, and I was given one that had a 2-year gap between work, history, so I just had to ask politely, what they accomplished in those 2 years off, because it was just discerning for an employer to see an applicant have 2 years off from the workforce.
I really like how you asked what they accomplished in 2 years. I think that sounds a lot better than why they took 2 years off. Great job on that. All right, so this one's kind of a tough one, but can you give me an example of a question that you would ask an individual if you were trying to measure their aptitude in effective communication?
Let me think about that. When was a time you had to carefully think about your message before conveying it?
Yes. That's a really great answer. Very nice. I really like that one. All right. So jumping ahead, can you just kind of give me what kind of experience you've had in regards to EEO law?
Sure. As a previous HR professional, I was very knowledgeable with those EEO laws as any HR professional should be, and then as previously taken college courses about it, educating myself about it, recruiting practices.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now in this next one, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I just kind of want you to tell me if you think that they're lawful or if they're unlawful to ask. Okay. So, the first one is, would there be a problem for you to relocate to another state?
Lawful.
Perfect. How soon do you plan to retire?
Unlawful.
How fluent are you in Spanish?
Lawful.
Do you have a legal right to work in the United States?
Lawful.
Perfect. And then finally, have you ever been convicted of a felony?
Lawful.
Perfect. Great answers. Okay. So please describe a time for me when you were frustrated to your breaking point.
Oh, I had a long day, and I was, long day back-to-back interviews. I had a coworker that kept trying to talk to me, kept coming into my office, bothering me, and I had a deadline. I need to get my work done in those interview applicant forms. My decisions sent to my superior. So the stress of the deadline and the interruption of the coworker made it difficult.
Yeah. Perfect. As a follow-up to that question, how did you handle the interaction with the person?
Just calmly let him know that he was causing a distraction for myself and that I had to get my work done, so I just shut my door and made myself a quieter environment.
Perfect.
To get it done.
Yeah, it sounds like you handled that really tactfully. That was good. Can you please give me an example of a time when you had a disagreement with a coworker and had to maintain your composure to effectively handle the situation?
I had an internship HR coworker and sitting into an interview, and the intern had thought the candidate was fit for the job. I did not, and he didn't line up with the qualifications that I was looking for, so I had to make the executive decision as it wasn't my role to. Although it was good to hear feedback from him.
Absolutely. Perfect, thank you. All right, so have you had prior experience with Microsoft Office?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And as a follow-up to that question, how would you describe your familiarity with the programs?
I'd say fairly confident.
Perfect.
Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, pretty good with those.
Perfect. Okay. So can you describe a time for me in which you used a Microsoft Office program to present information with more clarity than you could have communicating it verbally?
I was part of a team project in which we had to compile a lot of data and results from what we were surveying, and then we presented it in person through a PowerPoint to make sure the information was clearly understood to the recipients.
Very nice. Awesome. So that really concludes the questions that I have for you. Before we finish up the interview, are there any questions or comments that you have for me?
I'd just like to thank you for allowing me to come in, do this interview, and then I do have a few questions. If you don't mind, I'm going to jot down some notes just so I can recall. So, how does this position impact other departments as a recruiting manager?
Absolutely. So this is really a critical component within the company. As the recruiting manager, you're going to be essentially the front door to the company, making sure that all of our employees are going to be quality, that they're going to fit with the company culture, the mission, the value. That way, you are ensuring that the employees that other departments are going to get are quality applicants.
I understand. How will my performance be measured as a recruiting manager?
Sure.
in the company?
So, as a whole, our company has 6 criteria that we look at to measure everyone's performance. So, you'll be held against those standards just the same as every other employee in the company is. So, with that being the case, it'll be very easy for you to know how you're doing and how you can improve, what you're doing great at, all of that.
And those come with like annual performance reviews.
They do. We do them quarterly, and
Okay.
then there's also an
Great.
annual review at the end.
Great. Can you tell me how the recruiting processes in your company may be unique in regards to other companies?
Sure. So, I mean, really, there's not a whole lot of difference. The recruiting process is going to be really similar. Maybe something that would be unique is actually once we've recruited them, we have a 2-week-long training program under the recruitment. So they're actually going to stay at our corporate office and receive training directly from management team, from other coworkers, so that they can ensure that they're doing the right things.
I'm sure that makes it a very effective practice for new employees.
Sir,
I'm gonna write that down.
please do.
How long has this position been open? Just curious. Does
Yeah.
it have high turnover? Or?
Sure. It really does not have a high turnover. The previous employee had worked in the position for almost 8 years,
Okay.
and the position's really only been open for 2 weeks. We have a window that we try to keep open for 2 weeks for any higher up position, just so that we can hopefully get the most quality applicants possible.
Sure. What are some of the goals you hope for the recruiting manager to receive, within the first year? let's
Sure.
say?
I guess I'm going to rephrase your question so I can make sure I understand it. You're asking what goals I, as your manager, would have for you
Yes.
and hope that you would attain?
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure I understood. So one thing with our previous recruiting manager that got difficult towards the end was that the applicant pool that we were getting wasn't very strong applicants. So probably the strongest goal that I have for you if you were to receive the position would be to network a little bit stronger than the previous person who held the position.
Okay. I know you mentioned company culture earlier in my questions. Could you please describe the culture for me?
Sure. So the culture is very family oriented. We're all, here to support each other, love each other, work with each other diligently. It's very forgiving, very supportive. That's really what we're here for.
That sounds like a great place to work.
Yes, sir.
I think that's it for my questions. I just want to thank you again for taking the time to interview me today.
Perfect.
Can you think of any other information that you could give me about your company before I go?
I don't think there's really anything else about the company. I guess for me, I just want to thank you again for coming in and applying for the position. We still have 4 interviews left, so with that many, it's probably going to be next week, next Friday, probably before I'm able to get back with you.
Okay.
I promise I will contact you, one way or the other. We don't want to leave you hanging at all. But again, I just really want to thank you for coming in and applying with us.
Mhm.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.